Hi. Hi, Lauren.
Hi.
How you doing?
I'm very nerve-wracked because this Zoom system is a lot more difficult than the original system.
Yeah, I can't stand it. I would rather come in person. Possible to hear sometimes. The HBO's
Hi, David.
take place in that room, Washington Irving Library.
Yeah.
It's like you're in a dome. So the audio itself is
Right. David, we'll get started in a couple minutes. I'm still sort of setting up the meeting.
Okay,
It's
not a problem.
so much harder. So much harder than the old way.
I mean, I drove all the way to the meeting and you're not ready.
Right, and the computer says it's 6:59, and
I know, but I mean, it's not like
it's crap, I'm not ready.
it's not like I had to go real far to get to the meeting. I'm not worried.
No, I understand. I'm saying that I forget that when you're just turning on a Zoom meeting, even as the host from your own home,
Yeah,
it's about a minute and a half.
yeah.
But coming over here and setting up the whole hybrid thing, starting out by unlocking a cabinet and we couldn't remember the code, takes a lot longer.
Yeah, luckily I don't have to set up before the HBO-Z meetings. That the staff does that, but
Right, well, this is a never council, we self-staff, you know what I mean?
yep.
Okay. Anyway, how are you?
I'm not bad.
And I should say, and we are already being recorded.
Is that John?
That's David South.
Okay. It wasn't
I don't-
sometimes the name.
Yeah, no, that
He
is,
sounded a little like John.
John Arnold?
yeah.
No, not John Arnold.
Hi David, I'm Blake.
Hello.
Also, they're putting this place up for Halloween already. So. There we go. Okay, so I'm gonna call Steve's here.
So it's a booming topic. I'm it tonight, huh? Another Steve.
Right. Oh, Mauritius. So I'm not positive if John is or isn't coming, but I'm gonna try calling him. Well, I don't need to. Yes, I'll be there. I have a text. Hi, Marisha.
Hi, how are you?
I am okay, and you?
I'm good. Nice to see you.
Yes. Okay, so it's 7:01. My co-chair, John, is on his way. I'm not gonna wait forever, but we can, hopefully it's okay with all. We wait 2 or 3 minutes for him. And I don't know if he's on his way to Zoom or on his way to here. And we are being recorded already, both here and also on YouTube for everyone's information.
Oh, you're thinking on your priorities and going home?
So the other trick is, as I'm doing this, that's the music.
Right.
So I have to remember to look there
Gotcha.
and not here.
Would it help if I sat over there or no? No.
This is just my issue.
Oh, there's John.
Yes, he is. Hi, John. Okay, this is interesting. John, I don't know if it's necessary, but I'm gonna make you a co-host. And I had just told everybody we'd wait 2 or 3 minutes. That was a minute ago. So So I know you can start the meeting, but what time do you want to? I'm looking at the computer and not at the, see, this is my problem, like, I'll do that again. What time, John, would you like to start it in 1 minute, 2 minutes?
7:03 and it will be 7:04 shortly. I think 7:04 is reasonable.
Fine. And would you want me to share the agenda or do you have it?
Yeah, I think if you have it right, I have it, but
Okay, so what I'm going to do is prepare these documents for sharings.
is it easier for me to do the administrative stuff versus the,
Um,
why don't you and then we'd have to switch back and forth. That doesn't make sense. Hold
it's fine, I can do it.
on.
I'm just constantly now having to remind myself of it. Okay, but anyway, it is 7:04 if you want to,
Okay.
that administrative stuff, chairing the meeting would be cool.
Okay.
Thank you.
Hold on.
But I can share the screen.
Yeah, I got that. Okay, let's start the meeting. Okay, good evening, everybody. It's 7:04. We're going to start this meeting of the UNNC Planning and Zoning Committee for Wednesday, October 18, 2023. Call this meeting to order. Boy, I'm used to doing the COVID announcement. We have an agenda in front of us today. This meeting is hybrid. And so welcome everybody. So as a matter of course for this meeting, we go around the room, introduce ourselves if you so wish. If you do not wish to introduce yourself, that's perfectly fine. And as a matter of voting, we want everyone who is a stakeholder in the neighborhood and if they're to declare such, if they are wanting to vote this evening, to declare their stakeholdership. So let's start with that. And I will start. My name is John Arnold. I'm the co-chair of this committee with Laura Myers, who is in the South Seas House hosting the meeting. And I live in Jefferson Park. Therefore, I am a stakeholder. And now I will popcorn it over to Laura.
Hi, and I'm Laura Myers. I'm the co-chair of UNNC's Planning and Zoning Committee. I am also serve on its board. I live in Angeles Vista, and I am a stakeholder for UNNC. And I'm going to introduce Blake.
Hi, Blake McCormick. I'm a resident of Harvard Heights.
Great. David Saffer.
My name is David Saffer. I am the secretary of the Jefferson Park Historic Preservation Overlay Zone, and I am a resident of Jefferson Park.
Great. Steve Wallace.
Hi, Steve Wallace, resident of Harvard Heights. I am a stakeholder.
Great. Teresa.
Hi, everybody. I'm Teresa Masonette. I represent the West Adams Avenues on the board of the UNNC, and I am a stakeholder.
Great. Donna.
Hi, everyone. I'm Donna Jones from West Adams Avenues, and I am a stakeholder.
Right. And Marisha, if you wish.
Good evening, everyone. I am Marisha Morris. I formerly lived adjacent to your borderline. I still consider myself a community stakeholder. My family has been in the neighborhood for decades, and I care about the community. And today I'm here to listen and to learn about what's going on.
Great. Thank you. So I think I got everyone. Did I get everyone? Yes, I did.
We have everyone on this side of the in person.
Okay, so moving on from item number 1 to item number 2, general public comment. Anyone who has a comment for anything that is not on the agenda this evening, please raise your hand and we'll call on you. Laura.
I just want to give you an update of what happened yesterday at the public hearing for the oil drilling, Murphy oil drill site. So first, it was 4 hours of hearing and deliberation and questions. The zoning administrator had, before arrival to the meeting, had amended some of the conditions that he had previously imposed, based in part on the owner's appeal about some of those conditions. So some of the conditions were adjusted, and the commission basically voted to uphold the appeal in part, turn it down in part, but essentially to adopt the new findings or the new conditions as now presented by the zoning administrator. The major question that sort of seems to remain open is one of the requirements the zoning administrator put in was to have all the workover rigs be electric only. And the petroleum administrator, for those who came to our meeting when Steve Peckman ran through this, petroleum administrator had pointed out in opposition that the electric workover rigs are not commercially available anywhere, United States or elsewhere. So it's a little murky what the final decision was, but it appears that it was to be an annual reevaluation so that when the technology is available, it would be imposed. So, that's what happened at the hearing. And as I said, it was 4 hours long.
Okay, thank you, Laura. Anyone else with a public comment? Okay, seeing none, let's move on to item number 3, case file 23-1123, 1540 to 1544 South St. Andrews Place. This is been in our sphere for several months, probably 6 to 9 months, to a lease or purchase of a, oh no, I'm sorry, wrong one, of a newly built 4-unit apartment building. I talked with on St. Andrews Place. So I know this project and I know what's happening, but I'm not sure about the details. Laura, are you up on this one?
I am, and I think I'm going to stop this screen share and stop the screen share for a minute and just talk for a moment and then look for the motion and then post that as a screen share. So this is a large, nearly completed, not quite completed apartment complex covering 2 lots on South St. Andrews Place that was controversial initially because they claimed rights that wouldn't have been in place after the character residential overlay and the zone of R2 were in place. But originally, this came to the city in late 2018, kind of really in 2019, as a senior elder care. It was some sort of elder care with a facilities license project. So the zoning was trumped by the state license. Over time, it seems to have changed to maybe a TOC at some point. Anyway, it's a very large building. It would not normally have been permitted in our zone in Angeles Vista. One of the things in the character overlay is that if you have what's called a unified lot, in this case 2 lots, you still needed to keep down the center the setbacks. So it should have been like a U shape with open air. In any case, it's built and apparently also furnished, and there is now a motion for the city to consider, the owner has offered either master leasing it, or if they say yes, anytime during the master lease with 60-day notice, the city can also purchase this building. So I put it on the agenda. Teresa found this motion, it just happened last week. So thank you, Teresa, for watching so carefully council motions. I put it on the agenda because there were a couple of different concerns. One is simply that the ownership also owns the new city landmark. It's not a new building, a 1930s building next door at 1554 South St. Andrews. Originally had wanted to demolish that one as well. Obviously, that didn't happen. So it's a city landmark. And in the recent years, while this construction has been going on, they were using that site as its sort of as a landing zone. I mean, it seems pretty obvious that that's a good place to put your store your scaffolding, your trash dumpsters, et cetera. But in doing so, it's no longer landscaped. It's been looking abandoned. There's a homeless encampment. It is a city historic cultural monument. There were recently permits for some interior improvements, which is a good thing. But my broad concern would be using taxpayer money for this next door thing, which would have a good function, but using taxpayer money without requiring that some of that money go back into this other kind of community, I don't know what you'd even call it. It should be it should be a community benefit package all the way around. So what's being proposed is supportive housing or permanent supportive housing. And that's a really good thing in the 44 units, or 43 probably, because it would have to be on-site management. So I thought we should put this on the agenda to have a discussion. So that said, I think other people can discuss while I look for the motion, if you don't mind. Or which would you prefer, the motion or photographs?
I think photographs would just be, I mean, that's kind of moot because it's built, as you said.
No, photographs of the 1554 South St. Andrew.
Oh, of the historic building.
Yeah, I think that's all I have. But I can do the motion first, if you
Yeah, why don't
like.
we do the motion, so that might put a box around the discussion in a good way.
Okay, so give me a moment, and if anybody else has anything to say while I'm seeking the motion.
So this is fairly normal. I've seen a couple times. We had a project in Glendale, huge market rate project, like 300 units that was finished to market rate standards. And then a year after it was finished, it was sold to the city for affordable housing for their obligations to meet affordable housing. So it's not atypical for this type of transaction to happen. My question about this, Laura, I know that building on the corner wasn't always an HCM, and we were around when it became an HCM. Was this project threatening it at one point and they scaled down the project? Was part of that?
It's really kind of hard to know. Again, it's the same ownership. I think they had development ideas because they seem to also own a house, the Tudor house on Manhattan Place, which would be directly behind and to the east of 1554 South St. Andrews. So it may be that they bought a package of buildings and had other additional plans. They never applied for a demolition permit for the HCM. But again, I am just concerned that if the city should spend the money on creating permanent supportive housing. It's just that can our community also be benefiting from the use, the restoration of and adaptive reuse of the building on the corner, which isn't actually housing, it was built as a school. So it would have to be adaptively reused as more apartments. I mean, there'd be nothing wrong with having further additional affordable housing.
If the city gains control of the apartment building, does it also gain control of the HCM?
No.
So this remains under D&K Con LLC.
All of it's under them right now, but that's what I'm saying. Should we be recommending that the city acquire all of it?
Oh, I see.
Or require that some of the funds spent go towards the rehabilitation? And that would also not be unusual. The good example would be the multi-million dollar spend on what we used to call the 3 Jesuit houses on Menlo Avenue. There was a requirement that they be restored, that this money that went to Ralph's and everything else, that project also be done. So it's not unusual. It's not usual, but not, I should say, impossible to envision. But nobody may, I may be the only person who thinks this way.
Would that be part of, I mean, if the city undertakes leasing the apartment building, they would also be leasing the HCM?
Not at the moment, not based on this motion.
Laura, so why do you,
Based on this motion, the
why do you
guy
need
can
the
sell the
motion?
building and take the money and whatever.
why don't you read the motion, Laura? And you wrote this you're on your own, or was this by a group or?
This motion, this is the motion from City Council
Okay,
that, you want me to read the whole thing out loud? I can. According to the 2023, and they must mean last January, 2023 Greater Los Angeles homeless count, there are an estimated 46,260 people in the city of Los Angeles experiencing homelessness, a 10% increase from 2022. At present, the city has approximately 6,200 interim beds from programs such as A Bridge Home, Tiny Villages, Safe Parking, and Project Room Key, among others. In April 2022, the city and the LA Alliance for Human Rights came to an agreement which would require opening enough beds to accommodate 60% of the city's unsheltered population by 2027. As of June, this past June, 2023, the city needs to open approximately 4,900 additional beds to meet this goal. St. Andrew's Apartments, located at 1540 and they have the wrong address, and 1554 South St. Andrews Place, which, by the way, is the HCM, is a new 44-unit apartment building with a gross building area of 48,528 square feet. All the units are vacant, furnished, and move-in ready. The property includes a 19,136 square foot parking lot, a ground floor office, an enclosed courtyard, on-site amenities, and a fully furnished common area. The owner of the property has offered to lease the property to the city with an option to purchase at any time during the lease term upon 60 days notice. This property may be a suitable candidate for interim or permanent supportive housing. The city should evaluate the feasibility of leasing and or purchasing this property to provide more beds for unhoused individuals and further address the continuing homelessness crisis. And so then the motion that the city council instruct the city administrative officer with the assistance of the housing department and the Department of General Services to report with recommendations on the viability of leasing with an option to buy the property located at 1540-44, correct address, South St. Andrews Place, Los Angeles, California, 90019, for use as an interim and or permanent supportive housing purposes. So that's the motion. That's their motion. And I guess my other comment would be, which is the more important thing? And John, I think you might know the answer. Permanent supportive housing or interim supportive housing?
permanent supportive housing is the more.
I did.
Permanent supportive housing is the goal. Interim housing is exactly that. It's a interim. So better is PSH.
Okay. So I'm gonna unshare the screen now. And maybe others can discuss thoughts.
I mean, the building is completed.
Almost.
And then, this is such an amateur question, but if in 2018, before character overlay and all those things, that they applied it to be like a licensed elder care facility, and then just now it's not that, but things have changed, so they could have built what's there now using things that came into being later. It's just
No, they could not. If the applicant had waited a year for whatever reason, he would not have been able to build this.
So if you build something with the intention, the stated intention that it's going to be X, and 3 years later, 4 or 5 years later, it's Y, nobody cares.
It's the same use. I mean, it wasn't permanent as a hospital or an office. The use.
Yeah, I thought that it was like as an elder care facility. That just sounds so
It's a little
specific.
murky.
Gotcha.
I agree if it was, but if it was, I mean, a hospital is a more intensive use than
Gotcha.
housing.
And then is it furnished in terms of the fact that it was always going to be some form of housing?
The building and safety permit calls it a TOC, so that would not have been furnished. So I think that's why I'm saying it's a little murky as to comparing the permits to what I recall as being the process by which they got permitted.
Right.
But it's sort of a little irrelevant at this point, other than here we have this big,
it's academic.
very large building.
It's academic.
Yeah, you can furnish anything you want. Whether they furnish it themselves to make it a more attractive deal to the city, quote, as a move-in ready without red tape, that could have happened. But it's not against the law to put furnishing in your apartment. So, there's probably something of intent. I've never heard of anyone just, oh, we're going to furnish it just because that's what we want. That's not the case. So I could see it being a strategy for the city to buy it, so they wouldn't have to do that managerial task of furnishing it. But that said, is there anything shady going on? I don't. It's a lesser use of residential. It's still residential. I mean, it's still units are units. A lesser neighborhood than us, i.e. Venice, or e.g. Venice. They're blocking affordable housing left and right. They're the worst. I will say this publicly. You can tape me and put me on YouTube. They are the worst NIMBYs that I can see in the city. They're blocking affordable housing right now because of an issue that they believe that they got the city attorney to block it, if you can believe it, the city attorney. So we are doing our part. That if this had happened,
We mean UNNC.
UNNC, that that we can say, yeah, this building's already here. We accept affordable housing. That's a good thing. We can rise to the occasion and not have a fit, and know that this building's already built. And so to me, it's fine. And I'm just getting off of this Venice housing thing. That's just an S show, and so anyway, sorry for that op-ed, but I'm just like,
Okay. But back to this.
No, but what I'm saying is that I'm supportive of this. It's built, and I don't think it wouldn't have been different. If it was.
Right, no, honestly, John, it was just sort of like an academic question. I know
it's an academic op-ed answer.
Right. Okay, Steve has his hand up and followed by Marisha. So David.
Oh, yeah, I said Steve had his hand up. Sorry.
No, I'm sorry. Did I say Steve? I meant David Saffer, then followed by Marisha.
Okay. I'll take issue with John saying Venice is the worst, because Pico Robertson's almost as bad, because they're turning down because the affordable housing will be too close to single family residences, which is like, we're getting them right next door. Not too close around here. But anyway, I digress. Correct me if I'm wrong, but it seems to me at this point, what we're voting on is, do we limit it to just seniors or anybody who needs interim housing or permanent housing?
Well, I think we can, I'm going to answer that. I think we have a lot of choices here. We could choose to make a recommendation, and noting we're making a recommendation to the board and asking it to make a recommendation, to say, let's do permanent, let's not explore temporary, because we need permanent supportive housing. We could do what I was sort of not just implying, but suggesting, that there's a tie so that at least some of the money that he receives goes into the restoration of the place next door, so that both of them are shining examples of good, neighborly prettiness. We could recommend that they take a step further and explore purchasing that building, the other building, and having the city do the restoration. That may not be the best idea. We could say that, we like temporary shelter better. I mean, you know, we have a lot of options here.
I mean,
So,
if you're asking my opinion, and as a stakeholder, I guess I'll give it.
yeah,
I think the use is similar. As far as if it's just for seniors, or I would agree that I think permanent is better than interim. People have more invested when they know this is going to be their home for a longer period of time. I personally feel that way. I'm not a big fan of earmarks, which I kind of feel like tying this project to our wish that they would buy the one or give money to the one next door. I'm not a real big fan of that. I think those are two separate topics, and to make it a conditional, I don't think personally that's a good idea. I'm not in favor of that.
so Marisha's next.
So I have more of a question than a statement. I understand that it's 44 units, but what I'm unclear about is, one, how many bedrooms are in each unit, or if they vary. And then secondly, what is the living arrangement going to be? For instance, if it's temporary housing or even permanent housing, if the one bedrooms are going to be split where two people will be inside of the one bedroom, or if it's two bedrooms and it's going to be four people, if it would be more like shared living versus 44 individuals getting a studio or one bedroom apartment.
That's a really good point. And while you guys continue to discuss, I will see if I can find the building permit to see if it says what the bedroom count is. But
So I
John,
believe,
stand up.
Marcia, I believe if it was interim housing, they could double up because it's interim and they're looking to put heads in beds. If it was permanent supportive housing, I don't know of a situation where they put two strangers together in a co-housing situation to share an apartment. They might put a couple in there, a couple as in partnered, married, single mother, single father, whatever it is. But I don't know of a case where they actually, in permanent supportive housing, that they put two people together. I don't think that happens. The permanent supportive housing is about giving someone or a family unit a home.
So I'm not very versed in what you're saying about the PSH, but I know in some forms of housing, one being student housing, more than one person can share a room. And then also in similar type of living, which would be transitional living, if someone was coming from out of a program, or I don't want to say like a group home, but somewhere between a group home and a facility, there's people who will share a bedroom, and they are people who don't know each other, and they're also in some fashion funded or affiliated with like a city, state, federal program because the people are getting recommended to them.
So I believe, and I'm not an expert on this, I'm an expert on designing it, building it, but I do believe permanent supportive housing is about giving a person a home, and then there's in the building there is support for them, whether it's health support, financial support, adult training. So whatever it is to support that person so they are successful in staying in their new home. And I've never heard of two strangers sharing an apartment. I think that'd be hard to fund because you can't fund two people for one apartment and they split the rent. But what you described, that's more like a halfway house or a program heads and beds. It's more of a half. I think that's what you described, Marcia, is an interim housing, where it's about putting someone somewhere on their way to somewhere else. And I think then they can't, because there's no permanent arrangement for rent. It's about getting them secure, getting them stabilized, and then moving them on. So I don't think, and I think this is where we have some say, as Laura said, if we recommend, we would prefer permanent supportive housing. I believe that would be part of the package. It wouldn't be loading up like student housing, as many people as can fit in an apartment, because I think that'd be really hard to put the funding together, because people come with their rents. They don't come with a service. They don't sign up for a service and then get placed. They come with a rental assistance. So I think we can elaborate on that if we recommend our preference for permanent supportive housing.
So I have to say, on the building permit, I cannot tell, it does not reference the number of bedrooms or any sort of thing. It was issued as a TOC with 4 extremely low income,
Wow.
affordable apartments. So eventually, that's what I'm saying, that it morphed many times, but it does not give us a bedroom count on this.
So I have a comment for just for what David said. We don't have the power to put riders on things. So what we have the power to do is express our concerns, express our interests, maybe make a novel idea. The city doesn't know the historic building from, they don't know. They're gonna be focused on this building. If we as a community state to the cities as our city, and you're getting involved in this, know that this property next door is important to the community also, as is having affordable housing, as we've talked about many times at UNNC. So I think rather than saying we object to this unless you do something with the house, I think that's not what if we to get our point across, is to say these are the things that are important to us, and note that the building next door is owned by the same people. It's right next door. It's deteriorating. And without an intervention or something that the city is saying, wait a minute, owner, that we're giving you X millions of dollars for, what's happening with the HCM that the community is, and if they go, I don't know, or if they go, then the city can start adding that as part of their negotiations. And because I believe me, the owner of this building is not going to get a unfair shake on this deal. It's probably going to be a very sweet deal with the city. So I think we can, and we did this with the theater on Crenshaw. We knew that we don't really have a purview to say certain things, but we did it anyway, and we were heard because we expressed our opinions in a very civil way. That is what we want, and that's what we got. So I think there's a way, but if we don't suggest it, if we don't say, hey, wait, no one's going to do anything, and we might have a deteriorated to demolition HCM on our hands. So
Steve has his hand up, and then I have another question after that.
Yeah, thanks. I am, based on, couple decades of personal experience, always leery of not the facilities being there, but the management of those facilities and how it negatively impacts the neighborhood. My concern is the city's record on managing such facilities. I would, I think I have less confidence in the city managing a facility than I would a private entity, and I have a very low opinion of private entities managing those facilities on the negative impacts to the community. So do any of you have any knowledge of how the city might manage something like that so it's not negatively affecting the community surrounding that?
Well, John, I know it's not built yet, but what is their new name? The Hoya? Polis. They're planning to build a permanent supportive housing project 1 block away at 1808 St. Andrews, and that's a pretty good organization. I mean, could we suggest, as part of our commentary, that if the city is going to do permanent supportive housing, they explore contracting with an organization like this one or this one or this one? Is that bad for us to identify? Because Hollywood Community Housing probably does permanent supportive housing.
I believe, I don't think we can name a name, but I believe, Steve, that the city does not manage properties unless it's LAHD that builds, sorry to use this bad word, the projects.
Yeah, exactly.
Those are city owned, and those can be mismanaged, and they deteriorate.
Yeah.
That said, I would bet, when we can write this in any motion that we write, that I would bet that the city will buy it, but then will fully lease it out with very strict rules to a management company or a nonprofit or some combination of several nonprofits to manage it. And in return for that, they'll probably get a very sweet part of the rental. And because I don't think the city, I don't know what department of the city manages apartment buildings.
Yeah.
And I don't think this is LAHD. They are the developers at the LA Housing Department. It's not the planning department. It's LAHD. They're the ones that manage buildings, and they are not in the business of buying properties. They right
Well,
now
they're also not-
they're struggling with redeveloping their current properties like Jordan Downs and several other projects from the 1940s. But I don't think they buy properties. Laura, do you know something different?
So,
Well-
yeah, it might be nice to say that, yeah, if, we support this with, having some nonprofit or other entity with an exemplary record of managing such properties. I think that'd be fantastic.
I think that's what we should do. And I'm sure that's what it is, and we'll probably get a response like, yeah, that's what we're going to do. We aren't in the business of managing apartment buildings.
John.
But we should probably say it. So
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I agree.
my real question was, again, for John, what kind of facility use makes permanent supportive housing different than just plain affordable housing? I mean, how do they have counseling rooms? Because this was not built as that. So again, I'm circling back to the lovely school building right next door, the HCM. Would it make any sense to make all the services in that building? I mean, would that sweeten the suggestion? Because otherwise you're not going to have enough apartments. They're going to have to take an apartment or two away.
I think that is a great idea because it wouldn't be a change of use anymore to make it into housing. So the differences are very little. Usually what we, not usually, always, permanent supportive housing, it was 40 units. They'll have a regular lobby and they'll have community rooms. So the things that permanent supportive housing has that normal market rate doesn't have, usually more community rooms. Usually it's set up for people to feel secure. The laundry rooms are adjacent to community rooms or outdoor spaces. So that they have a few more amenities, and they have offices downstairs for counseling. And usually there's 3 or 4 offices. Sometimes there's a clinic room it depends on what kind of services they're providing. So it's usually about 2,000 or 3,000 square feet on the ground floor has offices. What's in this building, I don't know. I'd have to see the plans. But I love your idea, Laura, of saying, bring all those supportive things next door and make a good use out of that. And again, the city might not have thought of that because they don't know about it. And I think that's our job.
Right. So then again, I'm overwhelming the conversation. What do other people think of these ideas?
I like all the ideas that everyone came up with right now. All these. So what I heard is that I would vote for permanent supportive housing. I would say saving, I'm going to paraphrase, I'm not dictating the motion, Laura, that
I'm actually saying, hang on a second, because what I'm suddenly realizing is I want to show captions and then we can see, we'll have the transcript as we start doing this motion. Okay.
Want me to see if I can recite a motion?
Yes, please. I just wanted to get the transcription service on because
I move that we support the city's effort to buy or lease the property in question, 1540 South St. Andrews, as with the following conditions, qualifications, what do you want to call them?
Suggestions, qualifications.
I would make it stronger than what do we use when we did the theater? We had a word. It wasn't quite requirements, but it was. I
don't remember. Teresa, do you remember?
Let's put a pin on that with the following conditions. Let's just say conditions that the city has finds a partner.
Stipulation.
Yeah, something like let's could someone break out the thesaurus that the city has a third-party management entity that has strict management and maintenance protocols and requirements, that the city recognizes that the property next door is a historic cultural monument owned by the same owner, and that property is in disrepair and getting worse. And we recommend that the city include that property in the agreement in order to reuse, repair, restore, and maintain the HCM as part of the deal. What else was in there?
And explore utilizing it
Okay, that's right.
as the location for the supportive services.
And recognizing that permanent supportive housing needs support services area, that to maximize the housing in the current building, to put some of those uses in the building next door in order to reuse it and restore it into good condition, operating condition.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
It's seconded by Blake.
Any discussion, additions, subtractions, elaborations on the motion?
Well, the only thing is, are we recommending, requiring? I mean, is that what did we do for the pin?
Let's put conditions.
Okay,
Everyone comfortable with the conditions? Steve?
yes.
I just wanted to add, as far as the partner, that they have, like, again, like an exemplary track record of management.
Right. I accept that. What would you call it? A
Highly regarded.
highly regarded and
Well, experience with
established
permanent. Okay,
experience.
Teresa came up with a nice word, contingent, and but I want to make sure they have highly regarded, exemplary, whatever experience in permanent supportive housing, not just housing.
Yep. And then a track record of funding such maintenance and
Yeah.
long-standing experience, well established. We don't want the new, fly by night. Hey, yeah, we can do that.
Yeah.
And then they come in and they make a deal and they leave.
Well, I mean, I'd like them to be a nonprofit, frankly, but I don't know that that's necessarily a requirement. Anyway, I just think
Maybe-
an example.
Has demonstrated their skills, because a lot of these fly-by-nights, as you said, everyone says they can do everything because money is involved, and they don't. They don't provide oversight. They don't provide any support services that make this a good fit for a community.
Well, how about if we say preferably a mission-driven nonprofit with a track record, an
Yes.
established track record of doing permanent supportive housing with
Right.
long-term commitments to buildings or something like that.
Yes,
Just
great,
we need to feed their
That's it.
ears with all the things we're concerned about,
yes.
so they don't hire, the new Joe Schmo property maintenance who's gonna go to Bahamas next week.
Right.
Cayman Islands, sorry, one of them. Okay,
Well,
so those are all those are all the friendly amendments and elaborations. Blake, do you accept those?
Yes. Reseconded.
Any other
So,
discussion?
I was just gonna say, I know you were sort of joking, but what brought the downfall of the prior nonprofit at the Casa de Rosas, Sunshine Mission, was in fact the manager did embezzle the money and went somewhere with
We
it.
should definitely suggest that not happen.
Exactly, but it has happened, it's unfortunate. Not the current, not Jackie DuPont Walker and the new management, but the one that lost it to the CRA is because of an embezzlement, a major embezzlement.
I have stories of developers fleeing to Cambodia because they
Oh, gosh. All right. So I guess if there's any additional relevant discussion, or we could take a vote.
Okay, seeing no other hands, I say we call the vote. So anyone who declared that they are a stakeholder resident, please be prepared to vote. So everyone in favor of the motion, please raise your hand, virtual or on camera or in person. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 7 for. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, motion passes 6-0.
Okay, so the second item on the agenda, do I need to bring the agenda back up? Or is it okay if I just?
I can read it if you want me to.
Okay.
That was a good discussion, everybody. Thank you. So this is item number 4 is technical corrections to HPOC surveys. UNNC is home to 4 HPOCs. There have been recent discussions regarding how community stakeholders may initiate or request that city planning department initiate technical corrections to existing HPOC surveys. There are many examples where the original survey teams either misidentified a property or missed some properties completely, but the process to apply for a correction does not have clarity and it is unclear if a community initiated application is subject to fees. This is for discussion and possible action. So my first question, Laura, is this proactive or is there something?
There's a situation, 2 situations in Harvard Heights right now, and maybe Steve can tell us what they are. And then, and as you know, John, I think this is an issue in multiple HPOZs where either you go along for 15 years and suddenly somebody wants to do something on a property on a block on a street in the HPOZ and the whole property doesn't even exist in the survey. And how do you fix that? So that's one issue. And then the other issue is misidentifying whether a property is a contributor versus a non-contributor versus an altered contributor. And one of the reasons that that's coming up to the fore now is that some of the very early HPOZs were done when the surveyors, the historic consultants, were still using a criteria of would it be economical to bring, that there's been changes to this building and would it be economical to bring it back so that it, could it be restored? And they were making decisions like that in some of the less wealthy HPOZs that because the average income of people within that HPOZ is lower, thus this is a non-contributor because no one would have the money to bring it back. And that bring it back might be removal of stucco or, other things. And eventually that went to court and a judge threw that criteria out. So now the criteria, when we did Jefferson Park, it was simply, is it reversible or not? But the HPOZs that were done before that court decision never got resurveyed. So now some of those things are coming up, on individual buildings. And then lastly, there's a specific situation that Steve can say a little more about in Harvard Heights where the original turn of the century building is completely intact, but there's a commercial structure in front of it, but it doesn't touch. But the windshield survey was so fast that they didn't turn the corner to see the rest of the building. So you've got a non-contributor with an actual intact residential building that you can see on the side street, but not on the main street. So, and we were getting a lot of mixed messages about how can it be initiated? I'm saying this passive voice to make a change or even to explore changing it. So Steve, I know this was really one that you brought to my attention.
Yeah, the first one that we discovered was a property that was listed for sale for development by a commercial property broker. Excuse me, 1664 Southwestern. It was a fairly large lot. At the rear of the lot, there is an original structure, commercial structure, that was completely missed by the original survey in 1999. For that property, I think, gosh,
I think it showed as a vacant lot in the survey, correct?
no, I've completely blanked on the specific details, but I think they identified it as the part of the property next door where there is a Subway and a Washington Animal Hospital, entire development. They had them linked together as one large property, when in fact it wasn't the case. They were distinct properties. So that one was completely missed. And of course, I was worried because any commercial property that's being sold as a development opportunity is kind of scary when it has what I would consider a historical structure on it. The second one is, and that's 1664 Southwestern. The second one is 2137 Venice, and that's the one. It's I think a late 19-teens fourplex that is intact except for some aluminum windows. And that's it's right on the Venice commercial corridor. And it has two stucco boxes that were built on the front lawn of that property. And they do touch the siding, but they don't, it's obvious that they just kiss the siding. They haven't removed any of the original historic fabric. I believe even the balustrade is still there, of the front porch. The upper balustrade's there. Everything's there. Again, the only thing are just the aluminum windows. And so the survey took a photo from the beginning, from the front, and I'm sure the surveyor assumed that the entire front of the building had been completely removed to make way for these two stucco boxes. I had assumed that until it went up for sale a couple months ago, and I walked on the property and realized, oh my God, they're completely separate. The structures are completely separate. And so the survey was wrong because they never got out of the car. So those are the two that concern me right now.
And then, John, when you go around the corner, and I forget what it's on the corner of, but when you're on the corner street, the residential street, is fully visible as an intact building. So they hadn't turned the corner. So so what happened was that there was a previous planner at the Harvard Heights HPOZ who was starting work to do a technical correction on the Western Avenue one. And I don't know what happened with that, but the planner is no longer working for the city of Los Angeles. There is a new planner, brand new. And next thing, because I was copied in on an email from Steve to the planner, and the guy replied back that only the owner would be allowed to apply to change the status, which is not what is, I mean, the municipal code, the cultural heritage ordinance doesn't say that at all. But it's also kind of murky. An owner can apply to change or become an applicant, and then there is a form that they can fill out, and they can pay almost $2,500 to submit it, and they have to hire a historic consultant. But it also said, the ordinance also says the director of planning can do a technical correction. So, my sense is that I don't think anyone's going to want to open up the ordinance to rewrite it, because once you open an ordinance for revisions, then everybody wants to do 20 other revisions, and it's a nightmare. But I feel like the clarity is not there, because if the director of planning can do a technical correction, it would seem the community or an HPOZ board could initiate it without going through that other process. but I'm not sure. So that's why we wanted to start this conversation. I know again that University Park HPOZ has a long list that's been around for years now of properties they wanted technical corrections on, and it's sort of moving forward and sort of not. Steve, I think we had gotten an email from the planner saying that the owner actually was going to apply. And I don't know which owner that was.
On Western?
Maybe it was on the one on
I mean,
Venice.
I don't think the one on Venice.
No, I don't think either one.
Yeah.
No,
Huh.
neither.
Well, I don't know why any owner would apply if what they want to do is tear it down.
Yeah, if Eric, the information that Eric sent, the HPOZ planner, and that you said it's sort of like a planning initiated thing, it is so, it's onerous.
Mm.
And it does include, I think, one of the things that it says in terms of their like check boxes of everything that it needs. And one of them is that the owner needs to sign off on it. And it's, I know that there's, municipal code and all these practices are in place, but literally if you take two pictures of this property, it's like somebody took a picture with a 50 millimeter lens, and if they had taken a picture with a 35 millimeter lens, you would have seen the whole building. And it's one of those, the idea of needing to go through these bureaucratic steps and someone paying, $2,490 and hiring an historic consultant when anybody with like eyes can, it's the thing demonstrates itself. And I don't know, it just seems like that the planner, when he embarks upon having this conversation within OHR, it feels like everything, the benefits all, accrue to the owner of the property.
Right.
It's almost as though like the Office of Historic Resources doesn't have the right name sometimes.
Right. Well, I will say I had an experience, I don't know, 8 years ago, where again, in Harvard Heights HPOZ, a building was identified as A, in danger, and B, identified by community members as it should have been an altered contributor, not a non-contributor to the HPOZ. And I actually started work on one of these applications, and this was before they were charging money. But they may as well have said they were charging money, because that might have made them have somebody actually work on it. So we started the work. There were several of us, including Billy Green, who worked at the time for the council office. And we were trying to get information, even what did they want to know about it? What did they want to see? They didn't actually have the piece of paper they have now. But the point is, 5 months in and nothing was happening, no responses. Herb Wesson simply nominated the building for an HCM, and that was that. So it is a city landmark now, and it's actually proved to be a rather important one. And but the council office just gave up. I mean, they were supporting the technical correction, but it just wasn't happening. David has his hand up.
Yeah, I mean, and this may be too big a project to start going down and may open up a can of worms that we don't want to open up. But what we're facing quite a bit, and I think this is universal to every HPOZ, and John would know this, when we wrote the HPOZs, the city was very specific about making the wording non-specific. I don't know how would,
Yeah.
where we recommend or we discourage, or we've used words like that. And what's coming down now from the state with all these new rules, all these new laws, is unless you wrote definitive rules, they don't apply. So because what's happening now is, because all these plans are written with these kind of non-specific terms, the state's using that as a loophole to say you can't apply the HPOZ rules.
Right.
And
so, yeah,
and universal thing.
That's a related but side topic, but I do wonder, and again, we're not going to finish anything with this tonight, right? We're starting this discussion, not ending the discussion. I do wonder if UNNC should be developing some sort of policy statement about both of these things, because why can't the HPOZ boards themselves for example, initiate a technical correction, still have to fill out a form, but maybe not be required. I mean, the problem is, it's not just that you're supposed to give the building history, photographs, relevant materials to substantiate a report and analysis, architectural description of the property, integrity assessment. Actually, those are all proper things to require for a technical correction, but they're also requiring that the person who completes the report must be a person who meets the Secretary of the Interior's professional qualification standards as a historian, an architectural historian, or a historic architect. And who gets to decide who meets the standards? In other words, this is a gatekeeper kind of process. And then in terms of the preservation plans, again, it's a gatekeeper kind of process. Why can't the HPOZ boards be tasked to set up a subcommittee, go through their preservation plans, and change the language to the objective standards instead of the subjective standards, instead of waiting for some miraculous time in the future when the city has lots and lots of extra money so they can pay some consultant to do the same task. Why can't the boards do it? Why can't the boards initiate these technical corrections? But I don't feel like we can just sit here with a group of now 7 or 8 9 people and ourselves. I think we need to maybe make this a bigger project at our end first. I don't know. What does anyone think?
They also want to have the property owners notarize the paperwork, notarize their signature on the documents, which is.
Where does it say that? I'm looking at this.
All of the what's it called? The HPOZ technical correction of certified historical resources.
Yeah, I'm looking at that. I'm not seeing what you just said.
It's a single page that he had sent.
No, I can post it on that page. I'm not seeing that.
Oh, right at the top. Under Department of City Planning.
Oh, got it. It must be notarized by the owners. Well, yeah, so again, what the ordinance actually says, I could pull this up, but it basically says the correction of technical errors and omissions in a previously certified historic resources survey can be made by the director based on input from the board and the Cultural Heritage Commission or its designee. So that would be D3. Then you get to E. E is application procedure for redesignation of an individual property in a certified historic resources survey technical correction. And then it talks about the application. So there are E1. So it seems to me that D3, modifying this, does not require this whole thing with the owner and the application form and $2,400.
Yeah, it says can.
They can.
They can.
They can. Not that they cannot,
Yeah.
but that they can. So, but they're interpreting it that they cannot. That in fact it can only be this whole other process.
And in particular, the board is referencing a specific HPOZ board?
That's
Gotcha.
right. So, okay, John. So, what do you think? How should we proceed? You have a grin on your face, but you're muted. Maybe you're muted on purpose. John, you're muted.
No, I couldn't, my mute
There
button.
you go. Okay.
I'm gonna defer to Steve on this question.
Yeah, but I'm asking the co-chair, how should we as a committee proceed? But Steve has his hand up. So Steve.
Yeah, I almost like the idea of having the Harvard Heights HPOZ board push these two through and have a copy of that ordinance and say, per D3, that this is the process. This is how we would like to correct these. And we are now requiring you, OHR, to basically process this on our behalf as the ordinance says. and just throw it at them and see how they respond to that.
And
Okay.
so that means that suggestion is so it's not through UNNC, it's through the
Right.
HPOZ.
Correct. The HPOZ board.
Right, but then
and so
how does
I-
that fix it the next time?
So what it shows a process, and it'll
Gives you
have
a
a
roadmap.
process if it's successful or not successful. And I think as UNNC, we can support that. So they aren't alone, so they know that they have broader neighborhood support. It might even signal that, we're on it, and we might do it for all the other HPOZs, but it seems like attacking the one that's a hot issue right now. And then supporting it through UNNC is a good approach.
Just like lay the groundwork for an ongoing process.
Right. Well, then let me ask another question, Steve and maybe Blake. How do we get Eric to put it on the HPOZ board agenda? Because the board cannot take an action without it first being on the agenda.
I could bring it up as public comment at the next HPOZ board meeting and have the board members present ask that it be put on the next agendized for the next meeting.
Because I do know that, again, it's not for our neighborhood. University Park, HPOZ has technical corrections as a standing item on their agenda, but that was after a lot of advocacy from the community so that there could be discussions and actions. Okay, well, anyway, so that's one path. How
That
do
sounds
we,
like the tip of the spear.
yeah, David, how do we address the other piece of this? The redoing the preservation plans.
Oh, see, and that's where I am saying it might be a path we don't want to open up, or it might be a subject we don't want to open up, because I have a feeling if you start down that path, the city may here's our opportunity to get rid of them completely. We don't want the HPOZs anymore.
Right.
Yeah, I'm inclined to agree with that. First of all, I don't think it was just a mistake that they made it vague. I think there was legal
At the
advice
time, yeah.
from the city attorney said you can't change your zoning
Right.
for the HPOZ, so you can't say now our height limit in Jefferson Park is 25 feet. I
Well,
think that would be fraught with peril, and so that's why they recommended do it, not with because in 2023 there's going to be new state laws that are going to need this. So I think it's I think the changing the HPOZ rules, I think that's a major undertaking, and I agree with David. If they see that as a major undertaking, they might say keep it the way it is, or
yeah, and I'm actually thinking of something different. And John, actually, you and I sat with Craig and several others writing the Jefferson Park plan at your dining room table many
David
times.
Marino.
Where, I mean, my point is there were many discussions about should it say shall or may, but that isn't the problem that this objective versus subjective is. Whereas the problem is where it says something, whether it says shall be or ought to be or should be, consistent with the height of neighboring structures
Compatible
is
with
too vague, or compatible with. But I noticed, again, I was just reading an HPOZ plan, not the same language might be in Harvard Heights and Jefferson Park, but I was reading another one where it actually said for infill construction on a commercial corridor, the cornice height of new building should be the same as the adjacent building. And if the building is, if the new infill is taller than that, the part that it goes higher needs to be set back a little to differentiate itself so that the cornice stands out. Well, that's pretty objective. It actually says what has to happen. So, but I think that's uncommon that there's an objective description. I think what's common is needs to be compatible with or consistent with or the prevailing, and then we get into all kinds of arguments.
And that's mostly about very technical things like height and setbacks and things that include numbers and not.
Well, and then also in Jefferson Park, as you know, period of significance is like 1910 to 1955 or 53.
53.
So we
Right, with
like a 40
exceptions made, yeah, with exceptions made on other structures. If they're iconic, like the Catholic Church
Soriano.
Tower, right? And if they are representative of religious history, if they're representative of African American history. I mean, Jefferson Park has a pretty good preservation plan in terms of what can be defined as a contributor, right? Unlike Harvard Heights, which is terrible. I mean, really terrible. If it's outside the period of significance, it is not a contributor. Even the Ross Plaza, we're having those discussions too. So that's a different issue. But in Jefferson Park, I haven't gone back and looked at the preservation plan there, but I feel it probably suffers from the same thing all the other ones suffer from in terms of, again, setback.
Yeah.
Height.
And I think it's mostly on the boulevards because we have the
Right.
or as is Harvard Heights.
Right.
And that's where we're getting
That's where
a
it's,
lot of our stuff now is on Western and Jefferson.
Right. Right.
Yep.
So, Steve, I don't know if your hand's still up or up again.
Sorry about that.
Okay.
I am looking forward if they do proceed, if that sets a precedence on recategorizing, or
Right.
defining what
So-
properties. I'd like to see if that goes through and what the response is, because I think in Jefferson Park, we have a similar problem, but with our big problem is, it's a good problem to have, is that we've had so many houses that work have been completed on, that things that were non-contributor or contributing altered before have kind of moved up.
Right.
And we'd love to get them reclassified as contributing or moving up to contributing altered now, because they were a complete stucco box mess before, and now they're actually pretty good.
yeah, I think that they don't really allow that because if it's
Not
a
original.
redo, it doesn't count. Like there's one on 30th Street that looks beautiful now, but it's entirely made up.
But I mean, there's a lot of them that the stucco wrap has been removed,
Right.
and you can now see and wood windows have been put back in versus the aluminum sliders, and they're
Right. Those should be eligible for,
yeah.
I agree.
they should be eligible without the house proud owner having to invest a minimum of $5,000, if you look at this application form, $2,500 to apply, and you have to hire that bona fide consultant who's not going to charge you only $1.
So I'd like to see Steve go at the Harvard Heights, go through with it and see what happens.
So John, earlier you mentioned like how is it that this ragtag group of HVOZ members in Harvard Heights who are going to face off with the board and ask them to use this one phrase in the law. How might UNNC say we stand with this request that HVOZs might be making? Would that be a matter of Plum making a recommendation to the board and then a communication is made to OHR?
Right.
Yep, that's it.
Right. Well, right.
I prefer that approach because we really don't like to meddle with HPOZ
Right.
issues directly because it's not our purview. And I think the HPOZ should take care of itself, and then we can.
Sure.
Right.
But just as an umbrella organization that sort of works with multiple HPOZs contained therein.
Right.
Well,
I would also say, again, there's a form that they have created. So the municipal code requires that the planning department create a form. I will tell you that for sure, when I was doing the one some years back in Harvard Heights, they did not have this form, and it became an issue. But the form itself is not mandated, and its requirements are not mandated
in the law.
So the fact that it must be signed, notarized and signed and accepted by the owner, not mandated in the municipal code, and the fact of requiring that the person who prepares the report must be a qualified historian, as opposed to an owner who just does a
Gathers
lot of,
information, yeah.
well, properly. I mean, it has to be proper. The information has to meet this
Sure.
criteria, but the preparer shouldn't have to be a requirement. That's what I'm getting at. But the whole form, all they had to do was create a form, not create a form that created barriers.
A form, a mandating form.
Well, it's a barrier.
Yeah.
It's a gatekeeper form.
Yeah.
Instead of a let's help the HPOZ stay up to date form. So, and
What a
I
concept.
do think, John, a neighborhood council can make a comment about fees and requirements, you know, without worrying that we're stepping on the toes of HPOZ boards. So, you know, I don't know if we want to, but I think we're able to.
It would be nice to have that going into the HPOZ meeting. That's certainly for sure to get the interpretation of the neighborhood council on that ordinance, on that law, and as it pertains to the application and the requirements that have all of a sudden sprung up.
So that sounds political to me. And that
Yeah.
sounds, I don't know. So it sounds, who are we supporting? Are we supporting, I'm quoting you, Blake, the ragtag neighbor group that has come to us to ask for support? And how do we say that without being meddlesome? Because I want it to go back to the community, because that's what it sounds to me, just reading between the lines, that the HPOZ board isn't supporting the community in a way that's.
I don't think the HPOZ board knows this is happening.
So why
Yeah,
not?
I think it's on their radar screen. They've heard it as a conversation mentioned, but I don't think that they are completely familiar with, you know, the process.
Right.
So I don't know if it's sort of the sense that the UNNC, you know, would communicate to OHR that just weighing in on the process of making technical corrections has, you know, been brought to our attention. And it is our thought that that individual HBOZs should be able to bring technical corrections on their own behalf to be made in a more, you know, less bureaucratic, whatever. I don't know what the rest of it is, but something. I mean, to me, that sounds pretty anodyne. That it's like we're a governing body, because Eric was saying, I think, Scott, Steve, correct me if I'm wrong, but he kept throwing up this idea that, like, you know, cultural heritage has to do it, or UNNC has to do it, or
Right.
CD10 has to do it. That there had to be a body
Right.
that
Right.
would come forward,
Right.
and it's like it doesn't make sense to me. I think that HBOZ should. It almost makes the most sense that an HBOZ would bring these forward.
Right. And John, Eric Van Green, is that his name?
Yeah.
He did suggest that we put it on the UNNC agenda. The planner suggested we bring it to UNNC. So, but he may have just been saying that to make me go away. I don't know.
Was he suggesting it like that this particular issue should come to UNNC, like that you guys
No,
should
not
be
the
in?
addresses.
He just meant the general. Gotcha.
Yeah, not
The
the
concept.
not the two addresses in play, but the concept of
Technical corrections, yeah.
community-based requests and technical corrections. And, you know, and I didn't know that there's a price tag attached, but just the fact that it shouldn't only be an owner initiating. We shouldn't prevent owners from initiating, but the only reason an owner would initiate is if he or she decided, you know, they wanted a Mills Act contract, but you can't apply for the Mills Act unless you're a contributor or an altered contributor. If you own a non-contributing building, then you are ineligible for a Mills Act contract and thus ineligible for tax credits or tax benefits of any sort. You'd probably be ineligible for the new state historic tax credits. So that would be the owner who would want to spend this money, perhaps, and that must be what they were thinking about. Because I think otherwise an owner, and the other kind of technical correction is when an owner says, I don't want to be a contributor, I want to be a non-contributor. There have been changes not under my control, there was a fire, there was a this, and the building is no longer contributing, even though it was contributing in the year 1998. You know, the person who owned it before me changed out all the windows, you know, whatever. And they've definitely seen those applications at the Cultural Heritage Commission. I've sat through some of those. So they're not, this idea of spending the money is they're trying to, you know, it's for owners who have an economic thing that requires a technical change. But it doesn't really cover a situation where, and again, I've seen it, another University Park one, the survey entirely missed the house. It was just not in the survey. And it's not the only situation. I mean, there was a historic survey for Charles Victor Hall tract, and the one house that I was working on with the city, they had a receivership, also wasn't in a survey. It was just missed. There were trees and nobody saw it. The Raphael Soriano almost was not unsurveyed because the biography of Raphael Soriano, this is the one in Jefferson Park, book, the cocktail table book, the photograph just showed trees, and the caption was, "This is where the house once stood. It no longer is there." So, and that wasn't a survey, that's a published book, but it was there. It's now a landmark and a contributor to the Jefferson Park HPOZ. So what is the process by which the community can instigate this? And I think that's part of the conversation. All right, it is 8:30, by the way. Is this something we should act on tonight, or is this something we should ponder? That's the real question. Steve.
Yeah, two things. First, yeah, I would love if there were some bullet points on our UNNC's interpretation of that law. As far as, yeah, it shouldn't have to be, you know, have someone who's licensed or whatever, the fee, the actual form itself, those things that we could basically have in our pocket when the HPOZ, the Harvard Heights HPOZ board, is basically presenting this to OHR Eric Van Breen himself.
So I would suggest that we're not going to get that done tonight. Absolutely not. So I would suggest the next time we come with a bullet point list of things we can talk about to take an action, because us making it up out of, making it up now will take us hours.
Yeah, sure. That's completely fine. Again, I want to agendize this at the next meeting for the following meeting. Let's see. I had also wondered about, and I would love to see a council of all of the HPOZs to have the power of all of the HPOZs to advocate for things like this. There's the other one where all of a sudden OHR took the stance that any illegal work that was done is automatically grandfathered in, which is just bizarre. And it was just, it was being pinned on one planner, and then she quickly left OHR. So crazy things like that. But I do, John, to your point, the UNNC, it is inherently a political organization. It is. But it does support its constituents, which are the boards themselves and the people who serve on the boards and what those boards represent, all of the properties, which year over year has been increasing in its support for HPOZs and the protections that those afford. So I think that it's fully, I would hope that the UNNC, which is kind of the protector of many of the neighborhoods within its boundaries, I think that this is really a wholly noble cause.
So I would say, I guess I'll change my phrase to say, it sounds like out of sequence politicking. So I would say to take it from community idea, and now we got to a bullet point, and then something we can support rather than be the mother.
Yep, I love it. Yep, absolutely. Absolutely. 100% agree.
Okay, so we need some time to massage this. not tonight, but also realistically, our next board meeting, we were not able to convene a quorum at our October board meeting. So our November board meeting has to take up the October agenda items and any new items for November. And we're celebrating service of some of our former board members. So I don't think this is going to make the November cut at the board either. So just for clarity.
I'm happy to meet offline with anybody if
Sure.
somebody would like to do that. I'm happy to give my time outside of this committee to go over that.
Right, no, I'm saying we have time at the committee level,
Just
maybe.
UNNC, yeah.
It's just the board, the November 2nd board meeting is
Jammed.
and we have to be out of the room by 9 o'clock.
So I would suggest that we go to our next planning and zoning committee, do what we can, make an assessment. Because if we can jump into the board meeting and say this is gonna be really fast and non-controversial,
Okay,
we should do that. We can try that, but I think what I hear Laura saying is we can attack it on this committee as much as we can, but we can't guarantee any fast action from the UNNC.
right, and obviously it's Paula who creates the agenda, not me, not Teresa, not John. So, we'll just have to see, but we could put this on our, a follow-up and final on our next agenda.
Sure.
So, okay.
Great. So we have please re-agendize folks from Harvard Heights and come with something that's a written talking points that we
Bring
can.
your bullet points.
Right, bring in bullet points. Okay. And
BYOBB or BPs. Okay, next is, I jumped off my.
yeah, it's okay. It's follow up to previous cases, old business, ENS. I have one-ish. But does anybody else have anything? Oh, well, that's the one, Teresa. Can we get an update? So Teresa, I should ask you, did you stick it out 4.5 hours on the hearing? So the update on the Cocoside Theater is it's going to be now heard on December 5. What happened is the oil drilling hearing took so long, and then there was a break. This was all yesterday at the South Los Angeles Area Planning Commission. We started on the appeal for the Cocoside Theater, and the zoning administrator, different zoning administrator, did his presentation, and then the chair of the commission said, you know what, we won't have time to actually do the case. So there was some back and forth, but it's coming back on the 5th of December. So my further question, Teresa had thought that we voted to not take any further position on the appeal, and I did not go back and look at that because I agree that I think that's what we did, but my question would be, is that what we still want to do? But I don't think, that's not on tonight's agenda. So I think we, in other words, should we discuss the actual appeal or not? So that's a question for the board, I think. And I don't know when December 5th is. Is that after our December board meeting? I don't know. I'm going to look quickly. If anyone has.
No, I don't think it is, but I think we did have a very detailed conversation about any response to the appeal. And I remember Steve Peckman.
Yeah, I don't remember what happened.
I think we agreed not to do anything, that we felt strong on our initial position. And because the items in the appeal we did not discuss them in our initial support of the project, that, them receiving their documentation on time was not something that we discussed.
Right.
The items in the appeal have nothing to do with how we want to support the project.
Right, and it is true, December 5th is before December 7th, which is when that board meeting would be, and I'm still on the November is not a meeting where we want to have a whole lot of planning and zoning items, because I'm sure we won't get to them anyway, so that would just be disappointing. So the appeal was on a number of bases. One was that the appellate, which is the Burger King group right next door, said that they did not receive notice of the hearing, but the zoning administrator pretty much dismissed that because they went back and checked the city has a contractor, BTC, and they have a proof of mailing. That doesn't mean a proof of receipt, but it is legally, the requirement is proving that you mailed it. So that's kind of gone. The other things were their concerns about using the alley for the valet parking, the serving of alcohol, because they're worried that drunk people might do whatever they might do on the shared parking lot with Burger King. And they cited the Westwood specific plan. The zoning administrator says it's just the wrong part of the municipal code, is not relevant, that he had the authority to make do his decisions based on a different piece of the municipal code. So like I said, that part of the presentation happened, just the appellants were not able to present their case, and the applicants, the owners, were also therefore not able to present their case. So I felt, based on also what Teresa said, that the only thing that UNNC could say is what we said originally, and I don't have a problem with that, because we supported it and here were the reasons why. I don't think we need to say more than that anyway, but I did want to bring it back to the attention of the committee. I think Teresa's got her thumbs up.
Yes,
I can't even get.
If we want to do that, I agree that we should do that.
Right. And then, of course, the CIM representative said to the commission, because they had to agree, because the commission would otherwise have lost their jurisdiction in 2 weeks. And so CIM had to agree to extend the time all the way to December. And then they said, and can we be first on the agenda? Because they just sat there for 4 hours, actually ordered in dinner and everything, because that's how long it was. But then we're told kind of snivelly, no, we can't guarantee that you're first on the agenda. So, that was the end of the meeting. So anyway.
So if we need to reassert our previous position, we don't have to go back to the board. You can just do that at the hearing. Okay.
Yeah. And there's a new clerk, or a new commission secretary. So this time she's very, 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 very by the book. So we'll send the letter standalone. I'd suggest anybody who had a letter, send it standalone, because they're not really counting what was already in the file as a timely submission. And I don't know why, but just by the way. It's interesting being back in person at these meetings because the personalities are coming back through. I'll say that. Okay. John, do you have any?
I do not have anything.
Updates? Okay. And I can't think of any updates that I have. Any others? All right.
Okay, so should we adjourn the meeting?
Yes. And I'm going to, what am I going to do? I don't think I need to save the transcript. I think it will automatic. Okay. We will adjourn the meeting.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, everybody. Good to see you.
Save this. See, now I have to remember how to do all of these things.
I'll clean up.
Yeah, YouTube.